Hey, I'm Melodee. I'm a food blog photographer, and I have been going through a series of videos on how to photograph a recipe, and this is part 4. Now, over the last couple videos, I have shown you my exact process for photographing a recipe from start to finish, including all of the prep work beforehand. And in this final video, I'm going to show you my process for photographing heroes. But first, what are heroes? Well, heroes are the final product. They are the end result. And the heroes are essentially what sells the recipe. You know, ingredient shots, they're great and all, but you don't see an ingredient shot out in the wild and think, oh, I want to make that. You actually think, what's happening? What's going on here? They just don't work. The heroes are what works. So having a variety of heroes are important because these photos aren't just going to be on the blog, but they're being used on search engines and social media to help drive traffic to the blog, because that is actually the goal, to get people to the blog. So the photos need to be enticing enough to pull readers out of those mindless scrolling sessions to say, I want to make that one. So let's dive into our heroes and finish up this angel food cake. Now, before I photograph my heroes, I make a list of the photos that I want to get and what I need to have prepped. So I have this little worksheet that I use for my sessions, and it really helps me to stay focused, because sometimes you can just get so into the zone that you forget things. I don't know if you're like that, but I'm like that. So having a list is always so helpful. So before I photographed, I needed to have the rest of my ingredients prepped. So I washed my strawberries, I sliced them. I kept the best ones whole or sliced them in half. You'll see some of those in the photos. And then I made the homemade whipped cream. So good. And then the next thing I did was photograph the cake straight out of the oven, still in the pan. And then after it cooled, I set to removing it from the pan, and let me tell you something. Removing cakes from pans like this is a little stressful. I ran the knife around the pan, and then I banged it on the counter, as you see. And then I put the plate right up underneath it, and I shook until it released. Thank goodness it released. I was a little nervous that it was going to tear. And if that would have been the case, I would have cried. But actually, I've never had angel food cake tear. It's all come out perfectly fine. And this case was no different. So then I brought the cake and all the other items back into the studio to start photographing. But I started first with the great debate of what linen I should use. And I ended up going with dark teal because I liked how it worked with the berries. Plus, the teal of the linen complements that orangish color of the angel food cake. So color theory for the win. I'm shooting on my 100, so I'm going to be getting close to the cake, which is actually going to end up filling the frame of my photo. Then I swapped my lens out for my 50 to get an overhead of the cake. And notice that my cake is still anchored to the bottom of the photo. I typically keep that hero centered in the bottom 2/3 of the photo. Again, remember, we are focused on the food, not the scene. So I grabbed my list, I checked the first few photos off the list, and then I moved to the next ones, which was slicing the cake. And I always move through my sessions as if I were serving this to guests. So I always say from oven to served. So the next natural progression is slicing the cake. Now, I'm not ready to garnish these up yet. I just want to give the impression that the serving is in progress. So I positioned my slices, I added the serving spoon, and then I took a photo overhead. And then I wanted to get the slice from the side. And this is so you can really see the texture of the cake itself. So you can see how light and airy and absolutely delicious this angel food cake is. Now, the one thing about this photo is that the berry bowl was hidden in the background. I didn't love that. So I moved it towards the right back corner, and I took another photo, which I liked better because I had filled in that kind of in that empty space back there. Next, I had my helper come in and hold the slice mid-air, and don't worry, he gets paid in cake, all right? He's very happy with his job. Then I wanted to do a cake slice from one more angle again, so I have variety to work with. So then I crossed more shots off my list. And before I garnished the pieces, I made sure to get photos of the strawberries and the whipped cream. So after I got those, I went ahead and added a dollop of whipped cream, and I arranged the berries on top. Using my 100, I took the photo from a lower angle. But one thing I didn't love about this was I actually felt like there was too much whipped cream on it. and it kind of was covering up the cake itself, which is what the recipe is. So I wanted to get a few more pieces that were garnished just a little bit differently. And so I started with a piece of cake standing tall by itself on the plate. And then I went ahead and added just a dollop of whipped cream and a few berries to the cake and the plate at the bottom of the cake. Now, before I moved on, I actually remembered I had forgotten that I wanted some cake slices leaning against each other, so I made sure to stop and get that before I moved on. Then I went ahead and I sliced another piece of cake that was a little bit smaller than the first one, and I added just a little bit less whipped cream and really intentionally arranged the berries on top. So instead of just like the dollop of strawberries like the first one had, I just intentionally placed a couple berries on top and then a couple berries at the bottom. And I actually think I liked this one better than the first. Now, when you're photographing cake, a fork shot is a must. But the thing with angel food cake is that it's a little spongy. And so it didn't have as clean of a bite as like a chocolate cake would have. So I tried to get the cake to sit properly on the fork and eventually gave up and had a snack instead. But I still got a nice close shot of the bite shot. I just didn't have like the missing piece in the photo. And then the last thing I did before I finished up my shoot was to look through to see if I had any missing photos. And I realized I didn't get just a plain piece of cake laying on the plate. I got it standing up, but I also wanted it laying on the plate without any garnish on it. And so that was my final photo. Photographing these heroes actually took me less than 30 minutes. And I want to remind you, when you're photographing heroes, it's really important to remember two things. One, you're photographing the process from oven to served. And two, you want to make sure you have a variety of photos. So for example, I had the cake sliced on the plate standing up and laying down with and without garnish. I want to know, which cake slice do you like better? I have them labeled here and I would love to know in the comments which hero is your favorite. Now, if you enjoyed watching these videos, I actually have something for you. I've created a free download of my recipe session planner. So it's the exact worksheet I showed you here in this video, along with a weekly planner, and I've even included a sketch it out. So those of you who are really visual and want to really map out your photos, you have the ability to do that. So if you want the download, the link is in the comments. You can download it for absolutely free. Thanks for hanging out and photographing this session with me. I'll see you again soon.